Buenas tardes, amigos y amigas. Aquí Gisela Movilla desde Joyas del Corazón, una vez más para hacer un programa especial con invitado especial. Siéntese cómodo, no se mueva de sus sillas porque vamos a tener un tiempo muy lindo para compartir con un invitado llamado Fabian Movilla, nada más y nada menos que mi hijo. Así que vamos a comenzar esta programación, pero antes de comenzar a hacerle ciertas preguntas a mi hijo, quiero leerles algo que escribí hace tiempito, pero lo voy a leer como tipo de introducción para que más o menos sepa quién es Fabián y qué es lo que Dios me ha regalado en él. Así que les voy a leer esta nota que dice: Nacido con propósito. Junio 21, 1990. Fue mi tercer parto y último. Después de tener mis hermosas niñas, siempre quise tener un varoncito. Nunca olvidaré ese día. Lo recuerdo como si fuese ayer. Al nacer el bebé y la enfermera ponerlo en mi pecho, fue donde recibí la hermosa noticia de ver que al fin había tenido mi varoncito. Bello, sus manitas grandes de varón. Lloré de la emoción y le di gracias a Dios por mi varoncito, ya que al día siguiente me iban a operar los tubos para no embarazarme más. A los 5 días de estar en mi casa, temprano en la madrugada noté que algo no estaba bien con él. Él temblaba y se quejaba con pujo. Cuando lo saco de su cunita, él estaba ardiendo en fiebre. Temprano en la mañana corrí con él a la emergencia. Cuando las enfermeras me lo sacan de mis manos y me dicen que había que hacerle ciertos exámenes, ponerle una sonda para sacarle el orín y sacarle líquido de la espina dorsal. Mi mundo se vino abajo y me aterré de lo que mi bebé iba a pasar. No me dejaron pasar con él y yo lloraba desconsolada en el pasillo de aquel hospital mientras escuchaba su llanto desgarrador. Comencé a clamarle a Dios con desesperación: por favor, no me lo quites. Al fin tengo a mi machito y no tendré más hijos. Perdóname, Señor, si te falté en operarme. Ahora entiendo el dolor desgarrador de Abraham al tener que entregar al hijo que tanto tiempo esperó tener. Pero él le creyó a Dios. El mismo que se lo dio, se lo podía resucitar. Qué horrendo dolor habrá sentido Dios al escuchar el quejido de su hijo al ser torturado en aquella cruz. Yo me sentía impotente, no tenía ningún poder de cambiar nada, no tenía el control de la situación y al mismo tiempo desesperada. Mi chiquito desde ese momento se convirtió en mi guerrerito. Cómo él peleaba a los médicos y enfermeras con fiebre de 104 a 106 y nunca le dio convulsiones. Estuvo hospitalizado 13 días, lleno de sueros con antibióticos por una infección urinaria. Las enfermeras le tomaron tanto cariño que le llamaban My Romeo. Yo prácticamente me mudé al hospital con mi bebé recién operada, durmiendo en el suelo porque no había cama para mí. Pero no me moví de allí ni por un instante. Mi pequeño Romeo, Fabián, finalmente salió de allí robusto y sano. A medida que fue creciendo, exactamente a los 2 añitos, fuimos al mall en Navidad a comprarle ropa para los niños, mis hijas y él. Ese día, mientras estaban en el mostrador de ropa con las niñas, Fabián entraba y salía porque mi esposo estaba en la entrada del mostrador. Pero en una de esas que Fabián entró al mostrador con nosotras, mi esposo se movió de allí y no me dijo nada. Y el niño al salir se perdió. Cuando finalmente salgo del mostrador, le pregunto a mi esposo por el nene. Él me dice: pensé que estaba contigo. Oh Señor, qué agonía sentí. No sabía por dónde comenzar a buscarlo. Un mall atestado de gente en tiempo de Navidad. No se podía ni caminar. Mi esposo y yo nos dividimos con las niñas y yo, como una loca gritando su nombre, sentí que el tiempo se había paralizado. Comencé a clamar a Jesús, Jesús, ayúdame, ayúdame, por favor. De repente una señora me dice, señora, su hijo tiene un abriguito azul con un hoodie. Le dije, sí, sí. Ella me señalaba dónde lo vio y me dice, está detrás de aquella pared llorando. Cuando volteo a mirar donde estaba esa mujer, donde estaba esa mujer señalando, ese departamento estaba completamente vacío. No había clientes allí. Y tal como ella me dijo, así encontré a mi pequeño acostado boca abajo llorando y escondido detrás de una pared. Y otro niño como de 5 añitos parado frente a él, derechito, mirándolo como si lo estuviera cuidando. Cuando levanté a Fabián del suelo y lo abracé con gran alivio, al instante voy a preguntarle a aquel niño dónde estaban sus padres, pero aquel niño había desaparecido. Analicé esto. Un mall en Navidad súper lleno. Y ese departamento de ropa vacío. No hay otra explicación que Dios puso un cerco de protección sobre mi hijo para que lo pudiéramos encontrar y nadie se lo llevara o se perdiera aún más. Aquel único niño con mi hijo allí y que desapareciera de repente lo vi como un ángel de Dios cuidando a mi hijo mientras lo encontrábamos. Estos fueron los 5 minutos más eternos de mi vida. Mi hijo, Dios lo trajo con propósitos grandes y desde que nació, Satanás estaba empeñado en destruir la obra de Dios. Pero más poderoso es aquel que está en nosotros y sus propósitos. Nadie ni nada lo puede detener. Hoy mi hijo es un siervo de Dios que ama a Dios de todo corazón. Se ha mantenido fiel a Él en medio de su juventud y Dios lo ha dotado de talentos preciosos como cantautor, productor musical, cantante y predicador de la palabra, con una pasión por alcanzar la juventud. Desde antes de nacer ya Dios lo había separado para Él. Tú y yo, amigos, nacimos con propósitos. Si aún desconoces para qué Dios te llamó, búscale en intimidad. Habla con Dios, ponte a su disposición, sé valiente y determinado a hacer la voluntad de Dios, y Dios te guiará a su perfecto propósito. Jeremías 1:5 dice, yo te elegí desde antes que nacieras. Te aparté para que hablaras en mi nombre a todas las naciones del mundo. Así que esto yo lo escribí en mayo 17 del 2019. Tremenda reflexión. Ya podemos terminar la entrevista, Fabián. Pero siempre aprovechando que empezamos a hacer esto de los podcasts, buscando entre mis notas, encontré esto y yo, qué mejor manera de hacer un podcast, trayendo a mi hijo a esta entrevista donde sé que va a ser de mucha bendición, inspiración a tantos jóvenes que hay allá afuera y no solamente a los jóvenes, sino a padres que están levantando jóvenes en momentos bien difíciles. Entonces, bienvenido, hijo mío, a esta programación Joyas del Corazón.
Thank you. That was probably the most. Well, should we warn people that this is going to be bilingual?
Oh, sí, tenemos
First.
perdón, no les había comentado, pero sorpresa, este podcast va a ser bilingüe. No porque mi hijo no le haya enseñado español, aclaro, porque siempre le tiran a los padres, tienen que enseñarle español. No, en casa siempre se habló español, pero mi hijo entiende español, lo escribe, lo canta, lo lee, pero no se siente cómodo hablándolo. Siente que tiene acento y prefiere no hablarlo. Así que esta programación va a ser bilingüe y aquí nos vamos a entender. Él entiende el español, me lo va a contestar en inglés y yo trataré también de traducir un poquito lo que él le esté diciendo para los que no entiendan inglés. Así que continuamos. ¿Dónde me quedé en la primera pregunta? No te llegué a hacer ninguna. Ok. Te estaba dando la bienvenida, sí. Te estaba dando la bienvenida a esta programación y también te doy las gracias porque tú fuiste el instrumento que Dios utilizó para confirmar que esto era plan del Señor para trabajar. y también me has ayudado con todo lo que concierne a arreglar las grabaciones del podcast. Primera pregunta, hijo. Eh, ¿Cuándo comenzaste a sentir el interés por la música? ¿A qué edad?
I was about 13, because before that, before I was 13, I was more into, I grew up locked in my room playing video games all the time, drawing pictures and stuff. And if anything, I wanted to grow up and be like a movie director or something. But it was a church service in Casa de Oración. And I was about, I believe, 13 or 12 maybe, where there was a guest speaker that day, and he prayed for all of us. He prayed for the whole family. And when he prayed over me, the Lord used him to speak, to prophesy essentially, and to speak over my life that he saw God using me in music. And so leaving there, you heard what the guest preacher spoke on that day over my life. And so, you were telling me about music and stuff like that. And so I went home that day with that thought and that idea, like, And I always knew I could sing. I always knew I had the ability to do it. I was always just too shy to sing in church. So, just getting that calling, hearing that from that guest preacher, just gave me a reassurance that, okay, I have this gift. I know I can sing. I'm too shy to sing. I don't want to sing in front of people, but God is telling me he wants to use me in music. Then amen. Let's see what he can do. And little by little, I just started writing songs in a notebook. I would have a notebook that had a picture, an area where you could draw a picture, and then right under it had lines. And so I would draw like a little picture because I love to draw, and then right under it I would write a song with the picture. And also around that time, I remember you saying that God also put it in your heart, like a stirring in your heart that you and Dad needed to buy me a piano. Mm-hmm. And the both of you got me a piano, a cheap piano, nothing too crazy, but an electric piano. And then from there, I just started playing little melodies on the piano, and then writing little songs, and then the piano even had little beats on it, cheap beats, but I would make my own little songs, those beats and stuff.
Pero yo recuerdo, déjame hacer una breve traducción para los que no entienden inglés, porque yo sé que hay muchas personas latinas que escuchan este podcast y no entienden. Fabián está diciendo que le hice la pregunta, ya escucharon la pregunta que le hice, cuando él comenzó a sentir ese llamado a la música, y él nos está explicando que él comenzó a sentir esto desde los 12 o 13 años, cuando asistíamos a una iglesita que era a los comienzos, básicamente el tiempo que yo estaba reconciliada con el Señor y comenzando a caminar en el Señor. Yo estaba asistiendo a una iglesita, Asambleas de Dios, que se llamaba Casa de Oración. Y Fabián, desde ese entonces, vino un predicador que recuerdo que era venezolano. Y vino para un servicio de una vigilia. Recuerdo muy bien que también el Señor me habló a través de él. Este predicador, el Señor lo usó para hablarle a Fabián de que veía que él tenía un llamado fuerte en la música. Fabián a ese tiempo era muy tímido. Inclusive yo también trataba de impulsarlo a que cantara con nosotros en el devocional, porque yo dirigía la alabanza. Pero él todavía no se sentía listo. Así es que él empezó calladito la boca en la casa a hacer sus dibujos y debajo hacía sus notas, como escribiendo algún tipo de canción, ¿no? Y así poquito a poco nosotros, antes de regalarte el piano, recuerda que te traté de enseñar guitarra un poco, te trajimos una guitarra, pero todavía estabas muy pequeño y no estabas muy interesado. Es que de verdad para tocar guitarra te tiene que gustar porque no es fácil. Eh, pero como no vi que no había mucho interés con la guitarra, después yo sentí esa inquietud fuerte de que le dije a mi esposo, siento que tenemos que comprarle un keyboard, un pianito eléctrico. Y eso fue lo que hicimos, le regalamos ese piano eléctrico a ver por dónde, porque yo sabía que algo él tenía. No sé, Fabián, si tú te acuerdas que una vez saliendo de la iglesia, viniste a donde mí, bueno, ya estábamos en la casa y viniste a donde mí y me dijiste bien serio, y estabas chiquito, pero yo me acuerdo que dijiste así bien serio, este, mami, te voy a decir algo, pero no te asustes. Tengo, yo sé lo que voy a hacer con la música, pero no va a ser la clase de música que tú crees. Y tú tenías temor de decirme porque como era la música que haces ahora y en aquel entonces tú no estabas más o menos teniendo una idea de lo que tú querías hacer, pero que no era el tipo de música de tan seria así de iglesia, de himnario, ni que... Y tenías miedo de que no te fueran a los hermanos de la iglesia, que mayormente en esta iglesia eran gente adultos, ya ancianitos, entonces no iban a estar de acuerdo con el tipo de música que es el hip hop o lo que él hace hoy día. Pero ya él sabía, pero me estaba diciendo, y yo me asusté porque yo dije, pero ¿de qué tú estás tratando de decirme? ¿Qué clase de música? Que no te preocupes, pronto lo sabrás, no te preocupes, bro, de esa con esa seriedad. Pero ya él sabía lo que el Señor le estaba poniendo en su corazón. Próxima pregunta. ¿Qué cosas te inspiraron al estilo de la música que haces hoy? Y lo voy a traducir también, o tú lo quieres traducir, lo que te estoy preguntando, para los que no entienden español.
She's asking me what inspirations, where did I get inspiration from for the style of music that I do today? I think the cool thing is that in our family, we grew up, even though Dad wasn't musical in the sense that he can make music
or sing
at all. He didn't have that gift, but it was an interesting dynamic between you two because you were the musician, you could make the music, you could sing, you were the talented one in that area. But Dad was the one who was very musically diverse. Mm-hmm. And we grew up, he listened to everything. It wasn't like the Latino household where they're just listening to salsa, merengue, all day. It was, even though that was there too, but he was listening to hip hop, he was listening to rock, he was listening to reggae, which I sometimes I even look back at some songs and I hear even a little bit of reggae in some of my songs and I'm like, that has to be Dad, like, growing up listening to Bob Marley and so I just remember, we would wake up Saturdays and he's, you guys are cleaning and he's playing something different, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so and he was always the one that, he wasn't one of those parents that, that would get on their kids like, what are you listening to hip hop for? Oh gosh, what are you listening to? He was always very welcoming of the styles we liked, and the type of music we liked. And I remember, some of the first like musical inspiration I would get is just from taking Dad's tapes, which I'm not going to name the artist and give it publicity on your podcast, but I would just listen to some of the like the hip hop tapes or CDs back when there was the shift to the CDs. I would listen to some of the CDs, and then it wasn't until high school when around that age, after I felt that calling to make music in high school, that's when I just started to. I got my first CD from Frances for one of my birthdays. It was 13 years old, and she gave me my first CD, which was like a rock CD, like very heavy, like rock and rap. It was a mixture. And then another rock CD that was more, it was Christian, it was more relaxed. But then from there, I would go to school, and I would sit in the back of the class with, in my math class, which I was terrible at, which I almost failed because all we did was sit in the back of the class with a few friends, and we would trade CDs. He would like, listen to this CD, listen to that CD. And I'm like, oh, do you like this song? And then we would pull CDs out of this is before MP3s and Spotify and all that stuff. So we had to carry a whole case of a bunch of CDs with us with his little Walkman CD player and stuff. And so we would trade CDs, and he'd introduce me, like, listen to this rap group. And I'd be like, oh, cool, listen to this. And so we would go back and forth and talk music every day in that class. And it was there when I just started listening to a lot of different styles of music. And I'll admit, even though it wasn't Christian or glorifying God, I still think that God allowed me to kind of see the culture of music, so that way I could take my faith and say, you know what, like, I like this style. Why aren't there any really good Christians doing this style of music? Because I never felt like the music itself, like the notes, the musical notes and the beats, I never felt that was evil. You know, that's not what has... musical beats and styles are not what really hold the message of a song. They can inspire a feeling, yes, but they're not what hold the full message of the song. What holds the message of the song are the lyrics. And so I liked the style of music I liked of hip-hop and weird hip-hop too, that mixed different styles. But I thought to myself, I'm like, I love God, I love Jesus, and I want to see other young people, like peers of mine, listen to really good music with a really cool style, but with a good message of Jesus behind it. And that doesn't sound corny or, you know, or too preachy, but that sounds like real and authentic. And so from there, that's when, you know, I took all that inspiration from all of the rock I listened to and the rap I listened to, and even the inspiration of the music I grew up, like Dad listening to Bob Marley and reggae, and I was like, how can I put all of this like in a blender, like a chef, and mix it together and do something original for God.
That's awesome.
And if you're doing it for God, you want to do it with excellence. You shouldn't do something, you know, you're doing it for the King of Kings, so it should come out good and authentic and like good quality. So I just wanted to do that for him first, and just see other young people and people my age like attracted to it.
Y lo lindo de todo esto es que tu música no solo gusta a un tipo de edades de jóvenes, sino que tu música se ha visto que gusta desde los niños pequeños hasta la gente mayor. Porque mucha gente, y por ejemplo, las veces que tú has cantado en nuestra iglesia, todo el mundo de todas las edades se compenetran con la música tuya y les gusta. No es como la música secular, que siempre están las clases, los grupos distintos de personas que les gusta cierta música. Con la música tuya alcanza todas las edades y beneficia a todas las edades. Quería también traducir un poquito lo que Fabián estaba diciendo acerca de la pregunta que le hice de qué cosas lo inspiraron a él a hacer el tipo de música que él hace ahora mismo. Y él nos dice que, bueno, que aunque aquí la cantante en la familia soy yo y pude haber sido la inspiración en parte para él por la cuestión de la música, pero también el papá, aunque no canta, y aquí entre nosotros, que no lo oigan muy duro, no canta ni en la bañera, pero, pero una cosa sí buena tiene mi esposo, su papá, es que le gusta escuchar todo tipo de música, es abierto a todo tipo de música, que eso es lo que ha ayudado a Fabián a escuchar diversidad de música, donde así él ha podido reunir todas estas, ¿cómo se diría? Todas
Estilos.
todas estas clases de música y mezclarlas como en un blender donde como un chef cuando mezcla todos los ingredientes, pues él ha aprendido al escuchar todos estos tipos de música, mezclar y saber hacer lo que él hace hoy, pero también que él ha visto de que, y él decía de que cómo él podía hacer un tipo de música de que alcanzara música así de buena como la que él estaba escuchando, pero que alcanzara a la juventud con un mensaje poderoso de Dios, sin tener que ser tan, como diría, eh, de prédica de esas de rajatabla como hablan uno de pero que al mismo tiempo es práctico para la vida diaria de cada joven que experimenta allá afuera. Así es que ahí les dejo la traducción más o menos como, como puedo hacerlo. Eh, la próxima pregunta, Fabián, que esto es sumamente importante para que todos escuchen. A mí misma como madre eh, me ha inspirado porque hoy día tantas cosas que nosotros hemos visto dentro de lo que está pasando allá afuera, los adolescentes, las cosas que estamos viviendo, que no se hace fácil para muchos padres lidiar con esos cambios drásticos que la juventud pasa. ¿Cómo tú has podido mantenerte fiel a Dios en medio de tu adolescencia? Que sabemos que aunque tengas base cristiana, aunque sabemos que has sido levantado en la fe después de yo haber vuelto al Señor, eh, seguías siendo joven, seguías teniendo todos los deseos de un joven a la edad de la juventud, o sea, eras un joven normal y corriente como cualquier otro joven, pero al mismo tiempo, ¿cómo tú pudiste pasar todas esas etapas de adolescencia que son difíciles y mantenerte firme en la fe?
Um, so I think one of the most important things that every young person should have, because like we think about, there's a lot of Christians out there, a lot of Christian young people, and we see a lot of them still, regardless of their faith, they still go through a phase where they wander from the path. Mm-hmm. Or some get lost, or some enter into college. Sorry, and if you hear some nails on the floor, we have our dog here. So our dog Leo.
He's interested in them.
But so there's a lot of kids. I've seen it too growing up. You see a lot of Christian young people. They in college or wherever they may go. A lot of them stray, and I think. Really, I could have just been like anybody else, and I think I've had phases too, though I didn't go out and party or do drugs or was promiscuous or anything like that. Like, I had phases though where I was farther from God than I needed to be, and there was things in my life that I needed to repent of that I was not dealing with properly. Like anybody, so I'm no better than any other young person or anything. But the only thing that kept me from going over the edge or throwing in the towel and saying, you know what, forget it, I'm going to do what I want to do, was a sense of having purpose. And I feel like that is one of the main things that a lot of young people feel like they don't have. And because you heard my mom give the testimony about my early childhood and going into my teen years. And so for those who might be hearing this in English, just testimonies of God saving me from when I was a baby, multiple times in some crazy supernatural ways, and then later just feeling that calling over my life to do music, and God speaking into my life at such an early age. When you see all these things growing up, you get a sense of God's hand over your life and a sense of purpose. And so when you have a sense of purpose and you have like a mission and a vision in life, you feel like when you are presented with those opportunities to sin or to stray, that vision was what held me back, because it's like, how can I go out and do this sin or stray from God if God has a plan for me? Because if I do this sin and stray off the path, will that plan get fulfilled? Is that plan going to be, destroyed? Like, I see God's hand in my life, and I feel his tug towards a certain path and a calling over my life, and I don't want to destroy that at all. Like, I want to see that fulfilled. I want to see what God, it's a curiosity. It's like a curiosity of seeing, like, what is God going to do? What is God going to do? And that curiosity of wondering what's God going to do and what does he have is what kept me on that path. It's like if I were to go to a young person and kind of like, for example, because I work with kids, middle schoolers now. And so one of the ways to keep their attention is to say, like, hey guys, we really need you to behave. We want you to, listen to this lesson, because you're going to learn from this lesson. And if you answer these questions correctly, or if you behave and listen to this lesson, we have something for you. Mm-hmm. But pay attention. We have something for you. Mm-hmm. And so you see the kids, they behave, because there's a purpose now. The lesson isn't just some random lesson. The lesson, they're like, oh man, I have to pay attention because there's something coming. Mm-hmm. Like this, there's a purpose to this lesson. And so that was kind of the mentality that I had growing up, is like, I have a purpose in life. God has a calling over my life, and I really want to see what he does with it. I don't want to stray. I don't want to prolong this. I want to see where God is taking me. And there's a lot of testing, because I learned as you get older, it's not about the prize. It's not about, what God gives you. We want to fall in love with Jesus for who he is,
yes,
not for what he gives to us. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I feel like God did use that for years to keep me on that path.
Sí.
And then as I got older,
mm-hmm,
then he taught me, is like, okay, look, it's not about the prize. This is the prize. Walking with integrity, walking
yes,
with your God is the prize. And let me tell you, there was a season where I got frustrated and was like, what do you mean? I did all this stuff because I served you all these years because I felt like I was going to get something, and this, at the other, and you get frustrated. But at one end it was good because it kept me on the path, but I had to learn later, like in my late 20s and now that I'm 30, like, okay, the prize is God himself.
Yes.
The prize is Jesus himself, and knowing him.
That's awesome.
And so it's kind of funny because in a way...
He has a good sense of humor.
Yeah, in a way it was kind of like he kept me, keep coming. Oh, wow, you have something. And he opens the door and it's himself. And you're like, what, this is not what I expected. But I'm still grateful for that, because had I not felt like I had a purpose, had I not felt like there was a God's hand over my life, I would have been out there doing what anybody else would have been doing. You know, I got tempted in all the same ways, and I've fallen in many ways too. But God never let go, and he was always faithful to smack me back on the path if I was ever veering a little bit off. And I'm grateful for that. Yeah.
Mientras tú estás hablando de esto, me vino a la mente la experiencia que tú tuviste cuando estuviste en la playa, que el Señor te habló acerca de los mosquitos, lo que te estaba pasando.
You remember that.
¿Ah?
You remember that.
Sí, pero quiero que cuentes esa experiencia, pero antes de contar la experiencia, tengo que traducirle otra vez a los que no entienden el inglés de lo que tú acababas de decir, claro, más resumido. Básicamente, la pregunta era de cómo te has mantenido en el camino, en la fe, siendo un joven, desde tan joven, pasando todas las etapas de la adolescencia, que son etapas difíciles. Y él dice que siempre hubo en él el sentido de que había un propósito en su vida. Y a los comienzos de su adolescencia, pues siempre lo visualizaba como que había un premio detrás de todo esto, que en realidad hay un premio.
Yeah.
En realidad el premio es el reino de los cielos, estar con él es la salvación. Pero
but to also say, that's what I wanted to say that I forgot, that there is also reward that God gives, and
claro.
It's not that he doesn't give reward. He showed me my purpose, and he gave me a reward in a different way than I was expecting. Mm-hmm. And looking back on it now, it's the best way. Like if I got what I expected, I could have strayed away from the path. Because what I expected was like, I'm going to be the successful musician, I'm going to be famous, and had I got that like I thought, I would have been destroyed, you know. And so, but God gave me a new purpose that I wasn't expecting, and I love it. It's the best purpose he could have given.
Y que en realidad Dios no hace hijos malcriados, brats. Mm-hmm. He doesn't raise brats. Él hace hijos que son, les da a sus hijos lo que él sabe que ellos necesitan y hasta qué punto. Cuando él dice, esto no te hace falta, él no te lo va a dar. Porque si te diera todo lo que tú pides por capricho, entonces te convierte en un hijo malcriado. Y Dios no es un Dios que hace hijos malcriados. Así que lo que quería que Fabián, porque me vino a memoria esta experiencia que él tuvo, para que ustedes vean que aún siendo joven, y como he contado en los otros podcasts, que Dios es tan real que Él nos habla, Él se revela al que quiere conocerle. Y Fabián siempre, esto es algo que yo lo admiro, porque no solamente por ser mi hijo, pero es que él, a mí, su estilo de vida, su forma de ser como creyente, a mí me enseña. No porque yo sea la madre quiere decir que yo sé más que él y que yo no tengo nada que aprender de él. Su vida personal como hijo de Dios a mí me ministra y me enseña. Y lo que yo veo en él es que él todos los días él saca su buen tiempo para estudiar las escrituras. Y él le llama a su oficina Starbucks. Esa es la oficina de él. Ahí es donde él se mete siempre y se lleva su Biblia. Él siempre anda con su Biblia. Está como la madre que carga con la Biblia para el trabajo y para todos lados. Pero él se lleva su Biblia y él está siempre estudiando la palabra de Dios. Y cada vez en las noches antes de acostarme, si entro al cuarto de momento a despedirme, ahí él está leyendo la palabra de Dios antes de dormir. Por lo tanto, es una relación tan íntegra y tan genuina que por esa razón Dios le habla. Y él tuvo una experiencia espectacular una vez que él quiso tener un tiempo a solas con el Señor en la playa. Yo quiero que él les comente y después les traduzco a los demás.
So I had this experience. It was a while. It was probably by now. It was probably 10 years ago. Where I went to the beach to just to pray. Like I would go to there's like a more quiet area of the beach that I would go to, and at night when there's like really nobody there, and so I would go there just to clear my mind and just talk to God. And so I went there one night, and when I get there, I'm standing on the shore, like near the shore, and the waves are coming in and out. And like I get this thought, and I know it's God speaking, because I say thought because it wasn't like an audible voice. It wasn't anything super miraculous, sounding. It was just a thought, but like it was God talking through that thought. And it just said real quickly, stand on the edge of the shore, like put your feet at the very edge of the shore. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm gonna get wet, but so I go right to where the water just stops, right? Mm-hmm. And then I hear that thought again, like God speaking through that thought, now sit down and don't move. And so I'm like, okay. And so I sit down, kind of like knees up, feet planted on the floor, bottom sitting down. And I'm thinking, this water's coming in, I'm going to get wet, and like it was God testing me, like showing me that he's the one that's in control of the waves. Mm-hmm. And for sure, when I sat down there, the water would stop right at my feet, right at the tip of my feet. And even some water, like on the left of me, would go higher, would go, behind me. Mm-hmm. And then the water on the right of me would go higher also, like past me. But in that one area, the water would stop like right at my feet. Wow. And so I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like this is, like you have that moment like, wow, God is really talking to me right now. This is awesome. And so I'm sitting there, I'm just in awe of the moment. And then all of a sudden I start getting bit by those sea gnats. Mm-hmm. They feel like mosquitoes, but even stronger, more annoying, the sting, Mm-hmm. And so I get bit once and then twice. And now I'm getting bit like a lot. Like I'm just smacking myself like, oh my gosh, I'm like, oh, wow. So I start complaining to God about it. I'm like, God, like, you're stopping all this, but like these mosquitoes, this is like not cool. And he's like, and very simply he said, I told you I was going to stop the waves, not the mosquitoes. And so the message like that I got through that was like, in life, God has direction for you, and he gives you a purpose and a plan, and there's things that he gives you orders and direction to do, and you trust in him and you have faith that yes, he's going to accomplish it, he's going to do it, but he doesn't tell you every single detail that's going to come along the way. Mm-hmm. And all the other problems you're going to face, because there's going to be other problems, there's going to be other situations and issues that you're going to face. And so we think like you get a calling in your life, like somebody, like for example, this guy praying over my life, God's going to use this young man and music and blah blah blah, or whatever, you feel like God has a calling on your life, and oh, God's going to use me in this or that. And so we think, oh wow, like this is amazing. God, I must have some protective shield, or I'm the chosen one. And so we get, our pride goes up a little, like we feel like the special one. But God doesn't tell you like, I'm gonna use you, but there's gonna be this situation in your life. You're gonna go through a rejection here. This person's gonna hurt you. That relationship's gonna go south. You're not gonna make a lot of money. You're not gonna be doing this the way you thought you were gonna be doing it. Things, you're going to lose people on the way, like things like that are going to happen, but God's not going to sit there and tell you every single issue that's going to come along the way. Yep. So he'll be faithful in accomplishing what he said he'll do, but he's not going to stop the mosquitoes or the sea gnats. Mm-hmm. He's those things are still going to come.
Es tremendo las experiencias. Y por eso yo también, como les dije en el otro podcast, Dios tiene un buen sentido del humor. La gente piensa que porque que ser cristiano, que Dios está sentado en un trono así, con la cara larga, con un palo listo para pegar fuerte, Él se ríe de nuestras cosas, o sea, Él se goza con nosotros, Él tiene un buen sentido del humor y usa, como lo que usó contigo, que fue algo bien jocoso en el aspecto de que sí, yo te dije que iba a controlar las olas, pero yo no te prometí controlar los mosquitos o lo que te estaba picando en ese momento. O sea, eso es una manera de tener una relación. Es como, por ejemplo, tú y yo, madre e hija, madre y hijo, cuando nos sentamos juntos a hablar, nosotros nos reímos, a carcajadas de cosas bien bobas y tenemos esa confianza de poder hablar y de reírnos. De la misma manera es el Señor. Este, Les voy a traducir otra vez ahora a los hermanos que no entienden el inglés. Le pedí que contara la experiencia que él tuvo hace tiempo en la playa. Él se sacó un tiempo, una noche para estar a solas en la playa con el Señor, para orar, para meditar. Y el Señor le habló al pensamiento y le dijo que se parara bien a la orilla del mar. Y él se paró allí a la orilla, un poco a la orilla primero, y él mismo pensaba, pues, las olas van a venir y me van a mojar. Pero que después al rato vino el pensamiento otra vez y le dijo, métete más adentro de la orilla y siéntate ahí. Y él pues dijo, wow, pero me voy a mojar. Pero obedeció, que es lo importante. Se sentó allí en la orilla y él empezó a notar que las olas cuando subían llegaban nada más hasta el borde de sus pies, la parte del frente de él, hasta el borde de sus pies, pero alrededor de él, el lado izquierdo y el lado derecho, las olas subían bien arriba. Pero Dios no permitía que las olas lo mojaran a él. Y ahí fue donde Dios le mostró a él el control que él tiene sobre las cosas para ayudarnos y protegernos. O sea, le dejó ver, yo tengo el control de tu vida, en otras palabras. Entonces, más adelante empezaron a picarle esos mosquitos de mar que pican más duro que los mosquitos. Y él empezó a sentir que poco a poco le iban picando hasta que le cayó una manada de mosquitos y empezaron a atacarlo a él. Y él empezó a darle quejas al Señor. Señor, pero si tú estás parando estas olas, ¿por qué tú no paras estos mosquitos que me están aquí comiendo? Y el Señor le contestó y le dijo, yo te dije que iba a parar las olas, no que iba a parar los mosquitos. Entonces, ese es el sentido del humor que tiene el Señor, pero también la enseñanza que nos da, que hasta cierto punto Él nos da un mensaje como lo que le dieron a Él cuando era más niño, de que Dios lo iba a usar en la música, pero no le dio todos los detalles. Dios nos da hasta cierto punto el mensaje de lo que Él quiere hacer con nosotros, pero no nos da todos los detalles que podemos pasar pruebas en el camino, que todo el mundo las va a pasar. Así es que esa es la manera de que cómo uno puede tener una relación tan íntima con Dios, que Él se comunica con nosotros y andamos con Él todo el día, todo el tiempo. Qué maravilla, a mí me encantan estas experiencias con el Señor. ¿Cómo, déjame seguir buscando acá la otra pregunta. Ok, siempre en ti, como dijiste anteriormente, había esa inquietud de trabajar con la juventud. Y hasta cierto punto tuviste un grupo de jóvenes que hacía servicio todos los viernes aquí en la casa. Y venía un buen grupo y se formaba tremendo los servicios. Yo me colaba porque yo me creía joven. Yo me colaba ahí entre ellos. Pero siempre hubo en ti esa inquietud porque había ese llamado de pastorear jóvenes. Eh, y hasta qué punto dentro de esa inquietud que Dios te ha puesto en el corazón, que no es simplemente hacer la música, sino de trabajar con la juventud, ahora tu trabajo que tú tienes es con tratar con jóvenes. Quiero que hables un poquito cómo estás trabajando con ellos y dónde estás trabajando ahora mismo, cómo se llama el programa de donde tú estás trabajando con ellos ahora mismo, si se puede anunciar el programa como testimonio de que todo lo que Dios hace desde un comienzo y lo pone en el corazón se va desarrollando con el tiempo. En el momento uno no lo entiende, pero después poco a poco todo va cayendo en tiempo.
Yeah. Yeah. So even from the very beginning, when I started making music, it was focused on the youth. Like I knew that God wanted me to work with young people, and obviously at the time I was young, so I was working with kids my age, obviously. So that was always a focus for like the younger generation. But as I got older in college, started doing Bible studies, like you said, in the house with other young people my age, some a little bit younger, and did that for 4 years. And even though I'll admit sometimes I didn't have the slightest idea of what I was doing, but it was kind of like
Obedience.
it was like that season of trial and error. Like God teaching me like a boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
And so, dealing with a lot of people my age, young people at that time, that were a lot of issues, a lot of church hurt. I learned a lot from those 4 years, and I probably learned more of what not to do in that time. But even after that, I still felt that calling to work with young people over my life. And one of the things that I even thought one time was, even when I was working with music, I was like, working with music is cool, but like a bigger vision that I have that would be like really cool. And I remember just thinking about this with God, like, wouldn't it be cool to open a place that young people can go to where they can practice any type of art like they're into, where they can practice their music, or they have a recording studio to record music, or maybe they can practice film or whatever it is, writing, and then also a place where there's other Christian older people to mentor the kids, to be there for them, and to kind of be a guiding light for them. And I remember having that thought like in my early 20s when I was still doing the other group. And then years later, I find a place. Actually, in high school, I went to a place where some of my friends who were into dance, like break dancing and stuff, they invited me to a place. Like, this is back at high school. They're like, Fabian, you have to come check this place out in a church. Like, it's called Catalyst. And over there, like, they have hip-hop music playing and people are breakdancing and popping and doing all this stuff. And so I was like, okay. So I went with my friend Ivan, who was like my best friend that lived close by at the time, and some other friends. And so we went there. I was maybe like 15, 16. And I go over there, and it was the coolest thing because it was in the back of a church, but like it was a bunch of trailers put together. And in these trailers, like, you just see like a DJ playing music, and then guys in the middle dancing and stuff like that, doing all like the hip hop dances and popping and breaking. Then they had graffiti all over the walls and stuff like that. And then you keep going more and more in. Maybe you might see some people rapping in a corner. And then you finally go into like the very last trailer, and it's like a huge dance floor, and you see like that's where they have the actual event where it's like people dance battling through dance. They call it a b-boy battle, break dancing battle. And so they're competing. It's like a competition and stuff. They're going back and forth. And then in the middle of it all, the music stops. They stop the music. The DJ stops. And then this guy came in. This round, kind of stocky looking guy with a beard, a long beard, white guy. Just comes in the middle, glasses. He comes in the middle and he starts preaching the gospel to everybody there. And this guy, like, he was tatted up too. He had tattoos and everything, you know. And he starts preaching the gospel to everybody. In the middle of all that. Very short, simple, nothing crazy. He wasn't screaming or, the Lord says, nothing like that. Just very simple gospel, you know, simple, sweet message. And from there, you know, he would just give the opportunity for everybody to really think about, you know, the message and everything. They pray, and then boom, the event continued. And they keep dancing and stuff like that. And I was like, this is like really cool. And so I think that probably stuck with me, because then later, fast forward to when I was in college, and then I get that thought again. I'm like, how cool would it be if there was a place that, you know, young people can go to and practice their art and record music and stuff and have like Christian mentors. And then later when I'm in college, I have a friend who is a rapper, because I was in the music program. And he tells me, Fabian, you have to come to this place. You would love it. It's this hip hop place. You know, it's like they have graffiti all over the walls and art and stuff like that all over the walls. And we, you know, they do events there and stuff. And by this time, I was already like maybe 19, 20. And I already forgot about the Catalyst that I went to when I was in high school. And I was like, yeah, I'll go. But like I never had the time. And then finally, it was around Christmas of 2012. I went to a Christmas party with some friends. From the group, though, the Bible group that I was doing. And it was a very fancy Christmas party where everybody's dressed very nice and stuff like that. And it was a little boring. And I remember that night, my friend invited me, hey, come out to the hip-hop show that they're doing down here. And so I was like, yeah, maybe I'll see if I go. And while I'm at the Christmas party, I see that it's all boring. I'm like, this is so boring. Like, so I turn to my friends. I'm like, you guys want to go to a hip-hop show? And they're like, yeah, let's go. Let's get out of here. So we get in my car and we drive all the way to Miami. And we go to this place. And I realized, I was like, oh my God, this is Catalyst. They just moved. They moved to Miami. And I walk in and it looks like, it's in a church too. It's in a church, but you would never think like if you're a Christian and you walked in, like if you're a Christian, all you did was go to church your whole life, and you walked into this place, you'd be like, Señor, te reprenda, Satanás. What is this? And like, it's just like graffiti all over the wall. It's dark, and you see guys with dreads, and it's just dressed up all hip hop and stuff, and guys rapping on stage and stuff. And I get into this place, but at the same time, I feel like this is home. Like, and so, you know, they were doing like an open mic. They call it a cypher in hip hop, like a rap cypher, but it's basically like an open mic where they play the beat, and then anybody can go on, like grab the microphone when they feel like they're ready and just rap.
Se manifiestan ahí.
Yeah, and so they were going around and stuff like that, and guys that get up, they'd rap something or they'd freestyle, and then I just had this urge, like this like a tingling inside of me. I'm like, I gotta do this. And so the guy's like, who's next? And so I grabbed the microphone and I rapped whatever I had, like, you know, in my head. And the guy starts laughing at me. He's like, who is this guy? Because I still had on my button-up shirt from the Christmas party, and I had my hair all nice, slicked to the side.
When you used to have hair.
Yeah, when I had hair. And he was like, who is this guy? And he's like, he looks like, why did a car salesman just come up on stage and rap? And so I started laughing. And from there, I was like, this place is cool. This place is cool, because and the same thing happened again. They had a hip-hop show. People were rapping and stuff. And I had to say, I know some people are going to be like, oh, feel kind of weird about this, but it was non-Christian people rapping too. And they were all like there, just different type of people rapping. And then in the middle of the hip-hop show, the same guy, he came out. I was like, I remember this guy. He came out and he preached the gospel. And he gave like a very simple message. Gospel presentation right there.
¿Cómo se llamaba él?
And his name is Joel Stigale.
Ya él pasó con
and
ese.
unfortunately in 2016 he passed away to a lung, like a fibrosis that even the doctors didn't understand. But God put a calling. I talked to him later, because I kept coming back to Catalyst after that, on their nights where they would have nights where it's just open to hang out, or they would do Bible studies there. And I came back and I had a conversation with him, and he was the son of 2 missionaries.
Wow.
He grew up in church. You would think he was like, his testimony is like, oh, he got saved or something like that, like, and he was in the streets doing, drugs or no, because you look at him, you would judge, you would think that, but no, like, he grew up in a Christian household, 2 missionary parents, but he loved God. He'll tell you this himself. His like, there was this statement. He's like, I love God the most, and I love hip hop. And he wanted to find a way to bring the love of those 2 things together. And so he that's when he started Catalyst, where he would meet in like parks in Broward, in Hollywood. He would meet in parks just with a boombox and start playing hip hop beats. Maybe a DJ would be there, and then guys would just start rapping or break dancing. And then there he would just start preaching the gospel. So he took his calling of being a missionary. And he wasn't a missionary in the sense where he'd go to like, China or other places, which he ended up doing, because that's where the ministry of Catalyst, he brought him overseas doing things like that. But he was more focused not necessarily on a country, but he was
on the street,
on the culture, on the streets. And he started doing, even before Catalyst, he was doing gang ministries, where he was in the gangs, like trying to get snatch guys young people out of the gangs, to the point where he would even, because you know how to get out of a gang, you would have to get beat up. Yeah. They would have to say, oh, you want to get out of the gang? Okay, the whole gang has to beat you up now, has to fight you. And so he would have young people that were in gangs come up to him and say, Joel, like, I want to get out of this gang. I want to serve God. I want to change my life, but they have to fight me. They have to. And you say, you know what? I'm going to do it for you. Wow. And so but Joel, he knew martial arts. That was the problem. He knew how to fight. He knew martial arts. And so he's like, don't worry, I'll go in for you. Wow. And it was to the point where the gangs would see Joel coming and they'd just be like, oh no, Joel, please don't. Because they knew, like, he knew how to like defend himself.
He was a big guy.
He was a big guy. And so he would go into these gangs and he'd say like, hey, this person wants to leave the gang. I'm here to take his place. Wow. And it's like an image of Christ. Yes. Right? Yes. And so he'd say, I would come in, he would take this place, and the whole gang would try fighting him. He'd defend himself. I mean, I'm sure he got hit, but he'd defend himself pretty good. And boom, there he would get kids out of the gangs. Wow. And yo no sabía eso. Yeah, he has crazy stories. And so later he started Catalyst, where he wanted to continue ministering to young people in the streets, in the hip hop culture, kids who were doing graffiti the wrong way. He wanted to take them out of there. He would make a big graffiti wall, like, look, don't do graffiti on the streets, do graffiti here, like on this wall here, so you're not getting arrested. And he would open up a space so young guys can rap without being on the streets and getting in trouble. No alcohol, no drugs. And so he created a safe place where they could practice all of that art without the temptation of falling into the streets. And so when I saw that, I was like, this is what I wanted to do. This is like part of the vision that I had, like, that I wanted to do. And so I just kept coming to Catalyst. And it's not like I kept coming to Catalyst to start doing ministry right away. I kept coming to Catalyst because it was like a safe place for me where I could start rapping and doing music and stuff. And I would do shows there too. And it became like a family until, unfortunately, in 2016, when Joel passed away, it hit everybody very hard. His wife had to take over, and then later David, who is also like Joel's right-hand man, who I work with now, he ended up taking over. And a year later, in 2017, I was practicing at Catalyst, one of my songs, for a show. And earlier in that day, before I went to Catalyst, earlier in the day, I felt God's call on my heart to say, like, you should be involved with Catalyst. You should, start volunteering or something. And I'm thinking, no, because I don't want to think like I don't want to go up to them and they think that I just want to do it because, oh, Joel passed away and I just feel bad. It's like a momentary thing, or I don't want them to think I'm trying to take advantage because I'm an artist. And so I was like, you know what, God, if you really want me to be part of Catalyst, have somebody ask me, and then I'll know. That'll be confirmation that you want me to do this. And so I went that night to go practice a song for a show, and right after I practiced, a girl that was working there at the time called me to the back, and she's like, Fabian, come here. And then I was like, okay. And she told me, she's like, do you ever think about volunteering at Catalyst? The same day I prayed that prayer. And I was like, yep, I was just praying that today. I was like, how do I sign up? And so from there, I signed up to volunteer, and little by little just got more and more involved. So started volunteering, doing little things like sweeping, cleaning, helping them at shows. And then from there, I started teaching classes for the young people, like songwriting classes, music production classes. And then from there, we started moving to the middle schools. So we met at Miami Springs, like in 2018, 2019, and there we started right directly in the school to reach the kids directly. We started teaching drums and breakdancing and music production, songwriting. And then the pandemic hit. And so unfortunately we lost the building of Catalyst, but we said, we have to keep it going. So we just kept doing it in the school, kept teaching the kids in the school. And during that time, we got a new building. We're working on it. Right now, it's about to open up soon, our brand new building, so we can keep doing ministry from the building as well. But from there, little by little, just getting more and more involved, and to the point where in 2021, God opened the door for me to be full-time with Catalyst. And Youth for Christ, which Youth for Christ is the organization over Catalyst, that they have other ministries, other youth ministries, like ministries that meet in the schools called Campus Life, ministries that meet in the detention centers, like the jails for the youth, the juvenile detention centers, ministries that just meet after school, like at churches and stuff. And so all these ministries are designed to reach youth, to be a vehicle for the gospel, for evangelism, to reach the next generation. And Catalyst is one of them. And I'm just grateful that is literally my job, which is really cool. Like, that I can wake up saying my job is basically being a missionary to the kids around the area. I don't have to go super far. I could do it right here in my backyard, and teach these kids right here. And not only that, but reach kids using music, the very thing that God told me he was going to use me in. Like, I thought I was going to be doing music to make me famous or whatever, but that wasn't God's plan. He was going to use music to reach kids in programs like Catalyst, and be a teacher to them and a mentor to them. And so that's what I'm doing now, is continuing just to teach these kids music production, songwriting, teach them how to, discover their talents, musical talents. But then also, we make sure every day we talk about Jesus to them.
Yes.
Whether we're giving just straight Bible, or sometimes we'll give them like a lesson of life, but we always put Jesus in there, and mentor them too. Make sure we have time one-on-one to talk to the kids.
¿Y cómo tú, en medio de ese trabajo, fíjate, mucha gente cuando piensan en hacer algo para el Señor, rápido se les va a la cabeza que tienen que viajar, sí, Dios abre puertas y uno ha viajado, pero el ministerio que Dios nos da a nosotros, sus hijos, comienza con los del área, con los de los vecinos, los de tu familia, comenzando por tu familia, los de tu trabajo. O sea, la gente siempre se quiere tirar más arriba de lo que Dios los llamó a hacer cuando hay tanta necesidad alrededor nuestro. ¿Entiendes? Entonces, eso que Dios ha hecho contigo y que hasta dónde te ha llevado, porque empezaste baby steps, Pero fue un entrenamiento, lo que comenzó aquí en la casa, por ejemplo, el grupo de jóvenes, era el Señor ya implantando en tu corazón lo que ya ibas a hacer a tiempo futuro, pero dándote como un pequeño entrenamiento para que te fueras acostumbrando todo tipo de caracteres de cómo son los jóvenes, de sus problemas, de sus cosas, y aunque todavía tú no tenías la madurez o la experiencia para lidiar con sus situaciones, pero ya Él te estaba dando de antemano la visión de lo que te esperaba. Y entonces ahora estás haciéndolo full time, y aunque es un programa sin lucros de ¿cómo se dice? Non-profit, de todas maneras, tú cobras un cheque. Tú cobras como un trabajo regular, tú cobras un cheque por trabajar eso, porque trabajas, no es fácil. Eh, ¿Qué cosas dentro de lo que has trabajado ya con estos jóvenes has visto que te hayan impactado en el corazón, te haya dolido de ver la necesidad que hay en ellos? ¿Qué es lo más? Y quiero que los padres que estén escuchando en este momento presten atención. Fabián trabaja directamente con adolescentes, con la juventud. Él puede ver de cerca la necesidad que hay dentro de los jóvenes. ¿Qué es lo más que tú ves dentro de estos jóvenes? ¿Qué es lo más que les ataca a ellos en sus emociones? ¿Qué es la necesidad grande que hay ahora mismo en la juventud?
Um, I think the main thing is they just want somebody to listen to them and to be there for them. I think a lot of times older people look at kids and they think they don't want, these kids don't want anything to do with me. I'm old. Like, they want to be on their Nintendo, they want to be on their PlayStation, they want to be on their phone and stuff like that. They like, what can I do? I'm going to bore them. It's going to be awkward. Like, and so a lot of parents, especially nowadays, they don't spend the time needed to nurture these kids. And so they just give them a phone. They give them a video game system. They just, just distract yourself, for the time being. Go to school, you'll be distracted over there. Then you get home, here's more distraction. Or do your homework, get good grades, And to them, parents think that my kid is distracted. He's not out there in the streets and he's getting good grades. That's fine. They think that's good parenting. When really it's not, because I think with the thing I encounter the most with these kids is that a lot of them just want attention. They just want somebody to listen to them. Specifically, believe it or not, adults. And they think, oh no, they don't like adults are boring. They stay away from adults. No, they want adults' attention, because kids know that adults they know that adults are wiser. They might act smart. They might try to be smart with you, but they know that adults are more experienced. They know that adults have more wisdom. They want the attention. They want to be heard by adults. They want the mentorship. They want somebody over their life that can talk to them, sit one-on-one with them, where they can vent their problems, and then this person will listen to them. This person will actually care. And so many of the issues I realize that I face with kids is that they're just coming from homes where either it's a single parent home where the mom is busy and can't take care of the kid properly, or even homes where there are both parents there, but the parents are just absent because they just think the kid doesn't want anything to do with them, or they just distract yourself with this game. But believe it or not, kids want to talk. And I think that was even the hardest lesson for me, was like, it's easy to get in front of kids and give a lesson that you designed and you wrote out, you have planned out, and you just talk to them. It's easy. Like giving a little preaching to kids, that's easy, or a lecture or a lesson. That's not hard. The hard part of my job that took time for me to really craft and get out of my shell and get uncomfortable and learn was when we have to sit one-on-one with a kid, intentionally, with intention, and ask them how they're doing, and get them to talk and open up. And this past year is probably the year where I feel like I finally like really like grown more in that, where now it's coming more natural, and now I'm seeing kids like come to me without even me having to come to them and open up about things and want to talk and share moments and stuff, and that's, you see, that's what they're looking for, that they just want somebody to look up to, they want somebody to care, an adult to mentor them and talk and listen.
Es que la necesidad que hay hoy día, y también probablemente hace tiempo, desde hace tiempo, que esto no vino de repente, esto ya viene cocinándose de hace tiempo, es que los niños y los adolescentes necesitan una figura paterna o materna, pero los dos tienen que estar. Cuando ellos carecen, por ejemplo, esas madres solteras que tienen que hacer el papel de los dos, que no es fácil, porque como tienen que hacer el papel de padre y de madre, tienen que salir a trabajar. Entonces, aunque ellas quieran probablemente estar ahí todo el tiempo para sus hijos, la situación las obliga a estar fuera trabajando, entonces siempre ellos van a carecer de una figura que ellos puedan dirigirse como guía. Porque acuérdate que los niños toman el ejemplo de los padres, la guía de los padres. Pueden que tengan los dos padres, pero si esos dos padres no le están dando el buen ejemplo a los hijos, ahí es donde también vienen las consecuencias. Los hijos están siempre tratando de ver cómo, si yo no tengo esa figura frente a mí que me instruya, que me dé un consejo, cómo es la vida, qué es lo que tengo que hacer, que me diga, mira hijo, hiciste esto incorrectamente, y que corrija con amor y que sepa cómo corregir, y no solamente corregir, que dé el ejemplo. Cuando un hijo ve eso en su casa, va a ser un buen padre. Todo eso se va repitiendo, pero hoy día es triste ver que muchos hogares carecen de esa figura paterna en su hogar, carecen muchas veces de ese afecto. Ellos necesitan afecto, ellos necesitan interactuar con sus papás, aunque aparentemente, como tú dices, se sientan enojados porque los corrigieron por algo, pero dentro de su corazón ellos saben, si me corrigieron por esto es porque me aman. Ahora, hay padres que ni corrigen, dejan al muchacho ahí suelto, defiéndete tú solo, usan las maquinitas estas como las nanas, los babysitters, porque es más fácil para ellos no tener que tomar responsabilidad, que es la responsabilidad que nos ha dado Dios a los padres, como dice en su palabra, cría a tus hijos en mis caminos y cuando fueren viejos no se apartarán de mí. Es una responsabilidad que Dios nos da como padres de levantar a nuestros hijos en sus caminos. Cuando ellos no ven esa figura, ellos andan despavoridos, no saben a quién imitar, no tienen un ejemplo para imitar, y por eso es que ahí es donde vienen, que se van a las calles, se van a las gangas, porque como no tienen esa figura que imitar, que les enseñe el bien, entonces van a buscar otra familia allá afuera, que tristemente ahí es donde caen en gangas. Ok, continuando para no dormir a la gente, pero yo sé que la gente está interesada en esto. Estudiaste producción musical y ahora produces tus propias producciones. ¿Ya cuántas has hecho desde que comenzaste a producir? Y ya vas a presentar en estos días tu nuevo sencillo, que vamos a hablar de eso más adelante y vamos a poner una muestrita. Pero ¿cuántas producciones musicales desde que tú comenzaste, que tú empezaste hasta a hacer tu CD sin haber todavía estudiado, sin haber ido todavía a la universidad? desde ese comienzo hasta ahora, ¿cuántas producciones has hecho? Porque yo sé que cada producción te llevaba como 20 temas ahí adentro. Y nosotros decíamos, Dios mío, ¿cuándo ese niño va a terminar? Hermanos, amigos, déjeme decirle, ser mamá de un productor musical no es fácil. Porque todos los días tenía que oír en mi cuarto el tiki tiki, el bum bum, la misma repetidera del beat que no hacía sentido. Mi esposo decía, ay Dios mío, ¿hasta cuándo vamos a oír el mismo tiki tiki? Y yo, tranquilo, que no has oído el producto completo. Y después cuando oíamos todo nos quedábamos, wow, vale la pena oír el tiki tiki. Pero duraba tiempo con el tiki tiki ahí en la casa uno. Bueno, ¿cuántas producciones ya tú tienes desde que comenzaste a hacer?
So when I was in high school, my senior year of high school, I did my first production. Very simple. I just did it on GarageBand. But that's you're not gonna find that anywhere. That's not on Spotify. It's not on YouTube or anything.
Es un clásico.
It's yeah. So I just put it on CDs and sold it in school. I made like a little cover for it. Bought some CD cases and I put it on some cheap CDs and I sold it in school for like $10 each and
Pero hiciste bien.
I made like $250.
Hiciste bien. Para empezar.
Yeah, so that was my first production. That was like 17 songs.
Wow.
You have to remember, I grew up listening to like hip hop albums, and hip hop albums are long. They could be like 20 something songs. Sí. So that was normal for me. So that first project had 17 songs. Then I did my second project, which is kind of like my first because that's the first one you see on Spotify, on YouTube, on everything. That was the first official project. I did that like 6 years later. It was called The Kingdom. That was like another 14 songs. Then a few years later, I did like 4 years later, I put out another project called Tales of Vanity. That was like another 12 songs. And yeah, that was my last like project as far as like albums go.
You also did videos.
I did some videos too. Back Home is probably my favorite
Reject.
one. Reject, yeah, that was my first like video. I look back on it now, I'm like, it could have been better. But Back Home. Don't look up Reject, no. Back Home was like one of my last videos. I did another one in 2020 with a good friend of mine. She sang the chorus. It's a little bit more rocky. That one is called I Don't Love You Anymore. And it's not talking about a woman, don't worry. It was talking about music, like hip hop music at the time, because there's a lot of things changed with rap music. And so I did a music video for that. And so yeah, I did a few different music videos, a music video with some friends too. And so since 2018 and 2020, I just put out 3 singles. And then I took like a musical hiatus, a social media hiatus, everything hiatus, and I just focused on God and my life and where God needed to fix things. And so that's fast forward to now, from 2020 to now. Now I have finally my first single like in 3 years, like any music that I put out in 3 years, which is called Face to Face, which should be out next week.
Great.
The 7th.
Así a veces hay esos momentos que uno tiene que tomarse como un descanso para recargar las baterías y el material que Dios te vaya dando. Una de las cosas que quiero que sepan es que de todas estas producciones que Fabián ha hecho, cada vez que grababa, todos los temas iban en una secuencia de como contando una historia. Cada CD, aunque las canciones las escribía en diferentes tiempos, cuando las montaba en el CD, después nos dábamos cuenta y él mismo decía, wow, pero esto encaja con lo otro. Y cuando veníamos a ver era como, como decir un libro, un cuento, a través de todas esas canciones que llevaba una tras de la otra, llevaba una secuencia, claro, en diferentes estilos, diferentes letras, pero llevaba un mensaje eh, en secuencia. Y eso nada más lo hace Dios. Así que yo quiero que más adelante Fabián nos ponga una muestrita de face to face, que viene siendo cara a cara. Pero déjeme decirle, Fabián, como productor musical, como él me grabó, me hizo la grabación de Presencia de Dios, un tema que yo escribí, y que el arreglo musical lo hizo Mercy Torres, que es tremenda arreglista, esa niña, que Dios la bendiga, es tremenda arreglista. Ella es la hija de nuestros pastores, una de las hijas. Eh, Ella me hizo ese arreglo, y entonces yo dije, bueno, entonces Fabián, te va a tocar grabar a tu mamita para este sencillo, Presencia de Dios, que está ahí, por ahí, a todo el mundo le ha gustado mucho, pero el punto que quería llegar es que Fabián es perfeccionista cuando se trata de grabar, por eso se demora haciendo las cosas, porque él hasta que no se sienta que está como perfecto, no para. Y grabar con mi hijo, señores, no es fácil. A mí me lo puso bien difícil, me lo puso bien difícil porque cualquier milésima de nota que a él no le pareciera que encajaba, paraba el micrófono, hazlo otra vez, hazlo otra vez. Y ahí estuvimos, una sola canción. ¿Cuánto tiempo duramos para grabar esa sola
I know,
canción?
hours.
Pero ahí estuvimos porque es exigente cuando se trata de grabar, porque él hace las cosas con excelencia. Ese es el punto que quiero llevar. Hace las cosas con excelencia. Obviamente para el Señor todo se hace con excelencia. Así que ya estamos finalmente. Miren, esto ha sido largo, pero ha sido divertido porque de eso se trata los podcasts, hablar hasta donde más uno pueda y hacerlo todo interesante. Así que, Fabián, quiero que nos complazcas con un pedacito de esa canción Face to Face. Antes de ponerla, dinos de qué se trata la letra de esa canción, porque a veces uno no entiende mucho, tú sabes,
Yeah, yeah. Face to face. So it's a very interesting song because I think a lot of times in the past you listen to my music, and a lot of my music in the past is a lot of like rap and very like, you know, just very hip hop, and I put sometimes like a slow song or a pop song in there. But this is one of those songs that if you had no idea of my faith and that I was Christian, you might hear this song and be like, oh, this is a cute love song. You know, you might think it's like a nice little love pop song. But really what I wrote this song from a very transitional period in my life where, as fun as the song sounds and as happy as it sounds and very pop sounding, I wrote it coming from a place of a lot of hurt. Believe it or not, you would think that like you hear the song, I'm going to show you a little snippet in a little bit, and you would think the opposite. But I wrote it in a time where I was transitioning out of a painful period in my life, where I was realizing that I was too caught up in my telephone. Mm-hmm. And especially during the pandemic, when we were all basically, we couldn't go out like we wanted to, I realized I was getting sucked into my phone even more because a lot of the social groups that I was going to were closed. Like Catalyst was closed. I would always go to Catalyst, and that's where I would commute with, like, you know, mm-hmm. fellowship with other believers and art and stuff. And so things were just changing. I didn't have that social group and the group of friends and that I had to go out and see people face to face, you know, mm-hmm. and have that, which is so important. And so I was entering a place, especially in 2020 and going through 2020, even 2021, where I was just work, come home, telephone. And it was just me and social media and Instagram and Facebook. And to be honest, it was a very lonely and vulnerable time. And so getting sucked into the phone, you realize that it's not real life.
Mm-hmm.
That I can be somebody on my telephone.
Mm-hmm.
On my telephone, because I always grew up very shy, very timid. But on my telephone, I could be outgoing.
Mm-hmm.
I could say things with more bravery, like, and you're not as scared as, I could post a picture that I took of me modeling or whatever in a photo shoot and look very, wow, look at him, very handsome. We can touch up the face and make it look, better, filters and all this stuff. And so on the telephone, it's like I could be somebody that I desired to be in real life, but I was too afraid of. Mm-hmm. So since I grew up very shy and very timid, I grew up in the beginning of the digital age, where mm-hmm. MySpace was just starting to come out, Facebook was just starting to come out, and those things came out like right in my teenage years. And so in those are times when I should be developing my social skills, going out, talking, learning to be brave and take initiative and start conversations with people and friendships and whatnot. But I used those things growing up as a way to hide behind my fear. And so 15 years old, I was already using MySpace and talking to people through MySpace and then Facebook and stuff. And then finally, like in 2013, 14, 15, when I started going to Catalyst, I was starting to come out of my shell more. I was starting to be more social and confident. And I remember you, Mom, you even told me one day, like, I noticed that you're more confident. I can tell, like,
mm-hmm.
Since you started going to Catalyst, you seem more social, more confident. And I was making progress until 2020, until the pandemic hit, and then it was back to being closed mm-hmm. on my phone. And when I was stuck on my phone, to be transparent, and Mom, you're aware of this, I started building friendships with people that I really didn't know mm-hmm. in real life. And so, but because that's all I had. I just had my telephone. I didn't really have time to go outside and talk to people face to face. Like I was, we were all nervous about the COVID thing. And so you develop friendships with people that you don't really see, that you don't truly know. And unfortunately, a lot of them fell apart. A lot of them turned out to be something it wasn't. And it hurt me mm-hmm. really deeply until 2022, the very beginning of 22, when I lost a friend, or I thought was a friend. And it all came crumbling down. And it's like I had that moment, like a wake up. Like mm-hmm. like, what am I doing? Like, this keeps happening. Mm-hmm. Like, I keep building friendships with people that I don't even know mm-hmm. on social media and opening myself up too much to these people. And then I get hurt in the end. And that's when I realized I had to look at myself and realize, like, you're lost in this phone. You're feeling lonely, and you're turning to social media and a fantasy, mm-hmm. something that's not real, a lie. Mm-hmm. And so after that, I decided to really, things had to change. Like, it was one of those moments where I was like, that's it, like, no more. Like, this is like true repentance 101 right now. Like, I need, something has to change because I keep falling into this pattern. So I went out to seek like a Christian therapist, like a good, like, godly person that give, like, actual godly advice, not like some of these weird therapists, a good actual Christian-based therapist. And I was with them for a while, and one of the things we worked on was, like, go out there, because he was realizing you have a lot of social anxiety. You're afraid to talk to people. Like, why? Like, you have a lot of good qualities about yourself. It's all in your head, this fear that you have. And so he would make challenges for me, like, go out and just say hi to different people today. And then we would take it up. Oh, go out and start a conversation with the coffee person at Starbucks today, the barista. And then I would be nervous and stuff. And so it was little by little, but making challenges like, oh, go out and, you know, with your friends today and meet some people. Like, and so it was little by little breaking the habit of living in a fantasy of social media and the phone and starting to live in real life. And so when I started to do that, I started to feel this freedom, because around that time I got completely off of social media. I said I closed all my accounts. I even told a friend of mine, I was like, block my accounts. Like, I'll give you my phone, create a password, block them. I don't want to go on. I don't want to be tempted to go back on. Completely shut me out. It was like I was overcoming drugs, like a withdrawal. I was like, completely block it. And so my friend, God bless him, he helped me with that. And for over a year, I was off of social media. There was only one time I had to get back on, like November of last year, but it was because we had to promote something for Youth for Christ and stuff, and we needed social media for that. But that was just 1 month. But other than that, for over a year, like maybe a year and a half, I was off of social media completely. And let me tell you, it felt so free. We really don't need it. Like, yes, I'm on it right now because I want to promote my song, and that's the main reason why it's a good tool to use to reach as many people as we can at one click of a button. Yep. But other than that, like, if you're just your average person and you're not having to promote something like that, or a business, or like, I question if we really, really need it. Like, we probably don't. Like, you're fine without social media. And if anything, being able to develop skills, especially for young people, develop skills of communicating with people face to face. People are dying to talk to somebody. Like, it's sad, because the most challenging thing for me during that time was, I want to talk to people. I want you to make eye contact with me so I can say hello and start a conversation. But some people, they just don't look up. They just look at their phone. They're just in their computer screen or tablet, whatever, and nobody's looking up. And so around that time, that's when I decided to write Face to Face, where I'm talking about the beauty. It's like I'm talking to myself almost, or somebody else who is struggling with the same thing, and talking about the beauty of putting your phone away and meeting somebody new, and meeting people face to face, and being next to somebody that you love, like actually with them, not just in the screen. And so that was where the inspiration for this song came from. And I just hope it resonates with people, like the message resonated with me.
Pues vamos a escucharla, vamos a escuchar Face to Face, un pedacito para que la gente se vaya motivando, y ya el 7 de julio sale la canción completa. ¿Tiene una hora específica? No.
12 a.m., right when midnight hits on July 7th.
¿Y en qué plataforma salen?
Spotify, Apple Music, everything. YouTube, whatever you use. And you can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Just look up Fabian, Faybn, and that's Faybn. And you can follow any new music that I put out from here on out.
Ok, adelante. ¿Tienes eso preparado para escuchar un pedacito o no?
Just gonna listen to it on the way out of the podcast, the outro.
Ah, ok, pues perdonen. Eso lo van a escuchar cuando cerremos el podcast, que ya vamos a cerrar, porque yo no quiero que nadie ya deben de estar la mitad durmiendo, lo dudo, porque esto queda grabado y pueden volver a escuchar por pedacitos o completo. Pero esto ha sido una bendición tremenda, poder compartir en este tiempo este podcast con mi hijo, y que todos puedan conocer más a fondo de qué un joven puede vivir con el Señor, ¿cómo es posible vivir en una sociedad tan difícil, tan cruel? Teniendo al Señor, sí se puede. ¿Qué palabra, Fabián, para cerrar este podcast tú le puedes dejar a los padres concerniente a sus hijos? Ya tú habías hablado de eso un poco, pero para cerrar bien, ¿qué palabras les aconseja a los padres que hagan con sus hijos por experiencia de lo que tú has trabajado?
I would just say, listen to your kids, be there, spend time with your kids, even if it's weird and awkward at first, even if it seems like they don't want to talk to you, even if you have to sit in silence with them until they just crack and open up. But make the effort to sit with your kids physically, face to face, physically with them. And if I could just leave you with my favorite Bible verse, I have it on my bulletin board, and for young people and older people alike, it's 2 Timothy 1 verse 7. It's God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and self-control.
Amen.
And so, when we put our phones down, when we live in this real life, when you talk to your kids, whatever you do, just remember, like, even if you're scared, even if it's weird, it's a good verse to go to in any challenging time, to just, say to yourself, like, this fear I'm feeling, God didn't give this to me. He gave me power, he gave me love, which is even more important, and self-control, like self-discipline. Another translation say a sound mind, so meaning a mind that is sober and clear. And so it's a good verse to have when you're faced with the anxieties and the fears and the uncertainties, and just encourage you with that last verse.
Amén, amén. Pues ahí lo tienen, amigos, así que ya saben, ahí tienen a Fabian Movilla, un joven nacido con propósitos, y así como él, todos nacimos con propósito. Todos sus hijos tienen un propósito por la cual fueron enviados a esta tierra, a sus manos, las manos de los padres, para criarlos para el Señor, y que el Señor cumpla ese propósito en ellos. Los bendigo a todos. Gracias por estar con nosotros en este tiempo que hemos compartido. Así que hasta la próxima. Aquí les deja Gisela Movilla en Joyas del Corazón.
Put your phone away. I just want you to know what's real in